Al, just mention the watch party before you log off.
All right, we'll do.
And live.
Yo, what up, Knicks Nation? You already know what it is. We got a fun game this Saturday. You know, we got the New York Knicks, the Los Angeles Lakers, a classic matchup, classic matchup, especially if you're one of the OG Knicks fans that remember the 70s. So you all got to be ready for this one. Saturday, 8:30 p.m., we got the New York Knicks at home taking on the Los Angeles Lakers. LeBron and all of them are coming to town, and who better to help preview this game is none other than my guy Trevor Lane. He covers the Lakers for Lakers Nation. You can also catch him on Front Office Show if you want to go into more deep dive trades, break it down, how front offices think. So make sure to go check him out there. Make sure to hit that thumbs up button for your boys. Make sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. And make sure to support our sponsor, Underdog Fantasy. Use that promo code KFTV to get up to $1,000 instant bonus cash and a free pick. Trevor, welcome back to the show, my man. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me back on. Excited for this big Lakers-Knicks matchup that we've got coming up.
Yeah, man. It's my pleasure, man. My pleasure that I get to talk to you, man. You do a phenomenal job covering the Lakers, and then I only want to talk to you to get ready for this game, man. All right, there's a lot going on this season and between both these teams, both different trajectories. But I got to ask first, since you're on the Knicks show, what has been your thoughts about the New York Knicks so far this season?
I mean, they've been excellent. I had very high hopes for the Knicks coming in this season. I had hoped that the moves that they made in terms of getting Cat, getting Bridges, that was going to put them on level with the Celtics. I don't know if they're quite there. Maybe Mitchell Robinson getting back. We'll get them there. But they are very, very good. Please stay healthy this time. Please stay healthy this time in the playoffs, Knicks. I want somebody to take down those damn Boston Celtics. But the Knicks, I've been impressed with them. Cat, I mean, he's been doing some incredible work on the glass. But what I've been most impressed with is the transition from this Knicks team, right? I mean, look at the Knicks from last year. Their superpower was just crushing people on the offensive glass. And they're still good there, but they're not like elite, the best in the league by a mile or anything like that anymore, like they were last year. But they've transitioned the way they're playing now with Cat, and they've transitioned it so well that they're maybe more of a threat now this year than last year. And that's rare to see a team kind of pivot the way that they did and build their team out a little bit differently the way that they did in order to maybe raise their ceiling. And I think so far it's been really successful for them. Obviously, Jalen Brunson is an absolute joy to watch every time I get a chance to see him. But this is a fun team. This is a good team. But I think this team is going to be a pain in the butt to play against in the postseason.
They're certainly showing it, especially during this stretch of games. These last 3 games, it seems like everything's coming together. Offensively, we already know what it was like prior to, I don't know, I guess December. Like, they were really good in December, but it started to slow down a little bit. But now it's picked back up again. But the defense, that's always been the concern for this team defensively, especially when you got Brunson and Cat at your 2 premier positions, right? Point of attack, your rim protector. Can they hold up? Well, Wingstop has been doing a solid job with Josh Hart, OG Anunoby, and Mikal Bridges. Those guys have really dialed it up over the last 3 games. Very encouraging as a Knicks fan, watching them being able to perform in that manner, getting critical stops, because as we all know, you need a top 10 defense in order to take you to the distance. And if you're talking about the Boston Celtics, if you're tuning in right now, I'm sure you're not happy with Trevor talking about the Knicks taking down the Celtics, but it is what it is, my man. You guys got the X on your backs. We're trying to take you guys down. We're trying to get the chip. We get it. All right. But Trevor, out of everything for the Knicks this season, who's been the most impressive player to watch this year? Is it Brunson? Is it Cat? Who is it to you?
I think Brunson has been amazing. There's no question, but we knew what Jalen Brunson is, right? Cat, it wasn't quite as much of a certainty of how is he going to fit in with this Knicks? How exactly is this all going to work out? So he's been, I think, the most impressive in that regard. Jalen Brunson is still Jalen Brunson. He's great. But how Cat has managed to fit in with his team, just the force that he's become on the glass for them, I think that has really been, to me, the thing that has stood out the most about the Knicks is the job that Karl Anthony Towns has done, particularly when you look at the rebounding work that he's been putting up. He's been fantastic.
For sure. Cat's been fantastic. And I feel like he's playing a different game than he has out in Minnesota. He's playing much more aggressive. Not that he couldn't. We know that he could drive. We know that he can, play against the bigs, back to the basket, throw his weight around in the paint. We've seen that before. We obviously know about him knocking down threes, but it just feels like this season when you watch him play, and I don't know if you've been seeing the same thing, but he's just more aggressive in the paint and imposing his will, unlike his tenure out in Minnesota. Are you seeing the same thing?
No,
Or
I am. He got a little bit of that kind of, I don't know, that narrative around him that maybe he's a little bit soft when he was in Minnesota. It feels almost like he's adopted being a Knick. You know what I mean? Like what it means to be just the grit, the heart, the determination, right? I mean, that's part of what I love so much about the team from last year was just how you knew that most of the hustle stats they're going to win. They're going to get to the loose ball. They're going to by the time you might beat them on an odd night here or there, but you're going to be beaten and bruised and bloody by the end of it. And it feels like Cat has just kind of adopted that kind of mentality. Like the toughness level has gone up a few degrees, I think, for Karl Anthony Towns this year. Now that he's in Knick, and it's cool to see. It's almost like he's kind of taken on the personality of the team to a degree in his play style.
For sure. And I think that's the thing. I think if you took a poll, and we did take a poll, it was like almost, it was over 50% people happy with the Cat trade, a little under, like I'd say like 45 was probably where it stood. And I think for that 45%, it was, that moniker that he was considered soft out in Minnesota. They didn't impose himself, that, in big moments, he hadn't really proved himself. Now he did a good job last year for the first two rounds. Obviously, we talk about that game 7 against the Denver Nuggets, where he just kept them in that game long enough for Ant-Man and everybody else to, start to surge, and then obviously go on to the Western Conference Finals. Western Conference Finals, not as great, right? And you want to see him being Karl Anthony Towns, work his way out of those type of demons, obviously on the Knicks now. But I think just watching him transition, as you already pointed out, it's just like he saw what the fabric was of this team. Is like, I have to come correct. And in New York, you got to come correct, man, because we're tuned in. We tuned into this team. We want to learn everything about this team. We know everybody, even down to the G League. All right, I'm getting at talking about guys in the G League right now. Is this the wing that we're looking for? Okay, and so Knicks fans they just want to see that someone's going to go out there on a night-to-night basis and give it 120%, no matter what. That's why Jalen Brunson, Josh Hart, man, they're beloved right now on this team, because you already know what you're going to get out of these guys on a night-to-night basis. And so Cat has certainly embodied what that Knicks fabric is to the nth degree. But outside of the Knicks, you cover the Lakers. And what's it been like in the Lakers, man? I'm just going to rip off the Band-Aid right now, because Bronny James is on that team. And so, like, I know there's definitely politics that went into that decision in choosing him. You obviously want Bron and his son to be like, Bron wanted his son to be there, wanted to be like the, first father-son duo in the NBA to do that. What's it been like, man, having Bronny on that team?
I mean, it's been kind of the same. It hasn't really been all that different from a regular. I mean, there's like a tension on Bronny. There's fans, like we saw against the Wizards, where there were fans chanting for Bronny, cheering for Bronny, wanting him to get something into the game. There's stuff like that's going on, but it really hasn't been that big of a deal, like within LA, that he's been on the team. He's not really playing. I mean, he played it. Everybody made like this huge deal about, oh my gosh, I can't believe he played against the 76ers and LeBron is doing him wrong and all this kind of stuff. He played because everybody else in front of him was hurt, and that was it. He's spent most of his time in the G League, or he's gotten a little bit of garbage time here or there, but that's been about the extent of it, which is what we expected coming in. He's a kid. He's got to spend time working in the G League. He's a 55th pick, just like any other 55th pick. It's going to take a lot of time and a lot of work, and there's a pretty decent chance that it doesn't work out for him. But that's true of any 55th. But he just has more attention on him because his name is LeBron James Jr. Other than that, he's been pretty much what you would expect from him. Is he NBA ready? No, he's not ready to play in the NBA right now. He's working in the G League to get better. He has made improvements there. There is real growth happening in the G League, and that's what you want to see. And then we'll see if he gets there or not. But it's mostly just been the spotlight that's been on him that's been different. Otherwise, it's been pretty much business as usual from the Lakers side of things.
I just feel like there's been so much conversation about him, and obviously, as you pointed out, this is LeBron James' son. So there's going to be a lot of chatter about his son being on the same team as him. And obviously from a developmental standpoint, as you pointed out, being a 55th pick in the draft, like you're not really expecting much out of the first out of his first year in the league, but it just feels like because he is LeBron James' son, where it's like they did this for Jordan's kid, they do it for everybody. It's like we already know what your pops did. Can you do the same thing? And I feel like it's just kind of overblown at this point instead of letting him just develop. And I feel like there's just a lot of attention on him for really no reason where it's like just let the kid develop and let him be who he is right now.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, if any other late second round pick got subbed into a game, in the middle of January when the guys in front of him were hurt or struggling, nobody would be making a big deal out of it. It's just because it's Bronny. Now, if people want to get upset about something with Bronny, be upset about the fact that he's got a full roster spot and he's not just on a two-way contract. And that's something that has negatively impacted the Lakers. There are plenty of times right now, even with injuries hitting this team, where they could have used another like solid NBA player. Taurean Prince told me specifically he wanted to come back to the Lakers and was hoping they would bring him back. Spencer Dinwiddie wanted to stick around. Those are guys that could have taken that spot that Bronny's got. So if anybody wants to be upset about Bronny you can be upset that he's taking a full roster spot and not sitting on a two-way contract right now. But other than that, I do think it's just kind of the attention on him is a bit overblown. And I wish the kid luck. I hope that he winds up, getting there. It's not going to be easy. He's fairly small for what he does because he's not really a true point guard at 6'2". Maybe he winds up with kind of a Gary Payton II type of path in the NBA and can fit into that kind of a role. But, it's more likely than not that it doesn't work out with him. And we'll see. We'll see if he can develop. But I'm never going to root against these guys that are kind of long shots to make it in the NBA. I wish them the best, and I hope it all works out for him. And, I'll say this, for the spotlight that's on him, he seems to handle it pretty well. It doesn't seem to get to him very much. He shows some nerves sometimes in games when it's like the pressure's on for him to play. But in terms of dealing with the media, dealing with fans and stuff like that, it's kind of like old hat to him. He's used to it.
I can only imagine the pressure to play when not only do you have Lakers Nation behind you while you're under a microscope with Lakers Nation behind you, but on top of that, you're in front of your pops too, and you're trying to impress your pops at the same time. So I can only imagine the position that he's in. Salute to Knicks Nation. Thank you all for tuning in front of the Game of the Week preview. With me on the other side is my guy Trevor Lane. He covers the Los Angeles Lakers for Lakers Nation. You can go find that on YouTube. And he's also one half of the front office show, so make sure to go catch that on YouTube as well. All right, so got the whole Bronny stuff out of the way. I just had to ask because it's just like it's a lot of chatter, man.
Sure
I just wanted to just wipe that off the plate. Now let's get into the real thing. How are you feeling about the Lakers this season as a whole?
So the Lakers this season as a whole, it's been a roller coaster. The phrase a lot of Lakers fans have been using has been 2 steps forward, 2 steps back. That's kind of the way the season has gone. It's been you win a couple of games, they look good, and then they'll look terrible a few games. They have a negative point differential right now, despite the fact that they're well above 500, which is somewhat rare. It's because when they lose games, they tend to lose really bad. And then when they win games, they win by just a few. They tend to let teams back into games and stuff like that. But so it's been that kind of just disjointed back and forth season. But then when you take a step back and you look at the whole thing and you say, well, clearly we've been saying it since the summer when the Lakers sat out free agency and did nothing over the summer, aside from draft Dalton Connect and Bronny, that this is not a championship team. That's not what this group is. And in order to get there, they would have to make moves at the trade deadline. So the goal for this team as it currently sits, is to stay afloat. Just stay afloat in the Western Conference. And when you look currently, they're the 5 seed in the West right now. I think they're half a game back of the Denver Nuggets for the 4 seed. So in that sense, I mean, it's mission accomplished. And now they've got the clock ticking to see if they can make a little magic before the trade deadline and give themselves the boost they need to get over the hump and be kind of one of those teams that has a real shot at it. So you can't ask again. It's been frustrating, the back and forth, the inconsistent play from this team. But when you look at where they're currently situated in the West, you can't be too upset given the group that they've got right now.
So after trading, now they did make a move earlier, I should say. Let me start with that. They did make a move earlier. They traded D'Angelo Russell back to the Brooklyn Nets, and they did get Dorian Finney-Smith. And so that's the first move. What other moves do you expect for this team to make outside of that to take him to that championship level?
So they need it, and it won't be easy. Look, Rob Pelinka, for as much maligned as he is, his job is not going to be easy here. But you need multiple things, really, and one of them is you need more athleticism in your backcourt. So an athletic guard that can defend, and ideally somebody that could initiate the offense a little bit. We've seen that they've been lacking a little bit of an initiator because D'Angelo Russell's been gone. So that's something we know that they need. They also could use more of a physical presence as a big. Anthony Davis very publicly asked about that, said he's been asking for years for the team to go get another center. He wants to be able to play minutes at power forward. There's not really anybody on the roster right now that gives him the ability to do that. Jackson Hayes has shared the floor with him a little bit recently in two big lineups, but Hayes is 215 pounds soaking wet. AD's 250. AD is still going to be the one to have to deal with most of the physicality in the paint if he's sharing the floor with Jackson Hayes. So I think that's another thing on their list, though, to go find on the market is to find another big. You can always use help at the wing position, but they did have Jared Vanderbilt just come back from injury, hadn't played basketball in nearly a year since going out last season and actually February 1st. He went out last season against the Boston Celtics, and he's played, I think it's now 3 games that he's been back. So he's given them a little bit more depth on the wing, which I think will allow them to prioritize a bit more the guard position and the center spot. Can they get both of those things on the market? I don't know. That's going to be a tall order, but we'll see what they can get done. Those are 2 clear needs for this club right now, though.
So Gabe Vincent hasn't panned out in the way that the Lakers were hoping for when they got him last year, right? Because I think that's kind of like we're looking for, like, cheap option, kind of, I guess, like the Mario Chalmers type of role. He's just flat out hasn't done what the Lakers needed.
Well, over the last month, he's kind of turned back into the Gabe Vincent they thought they were going to get. Last season was basically evaporated. He got hurt, and that was essentially his season was. He played a little bit in the playoffs, but he was clearly not right. So last season was just erased. This season, he started off very slowly. He did not look good. Looked like a kind of a wasted roster spot. And over the last month, he's been out hurt for the last few games. It was against the Warriors a few games ago that he banged knees with somebody, and so he's been out since then. Maybe he'll play in this game against the Knicks, but he's been more the guy that you were hoping to see. Very tough, very tenacious defensively. Problem is he's more of a secondary creator. We're looking at initiating the offense. He's a secondary guy. He doesn't quite have the same court vision as you'd want out of a primary initiator. He can hit some tough shots and knock down some shots for you. He will hustle. But he's not quite filled the entire role that you need in the backcourt. He looks much more like a rotation player now than he did even, say, 6 weeks ago. And then hopefully this is the Gabe Vincent that's here to stay. But yeah, he's not like a traditional point guard in that sense. And I think they are lacking that to some degree.
So who's the point guard that you think that the Lakers would try to go get at this point?
You know, I kind of wonder if it is a true point that they would go after. Or if maybe they decide to add another secondary guy, and then kind of just in the aggregate by having Gabe and another secondary, if that's something, you look at Bruce Brown. Actually, Bruce Brown was the guy that I heard from within the Lakers. They were getting Bruce Brown. And then Indy swooped in and offered, I think 23, 21 million, something like that. The Lakers were going to get Bruce Brown with their mid-level exception. And then Indy came in with their big offer. And then the Lakers pivoted to Gabe Vincent. So it's how they wound up with him. But I think this is a situation where they could just get another guy who can be a ball mover and not necessarily have to fill that role, because come playoff time, LeBron's going to handle the ball so much anyway. But if they were to look for a true point, I know a name that's been out there that they've been looking for, at least a true initiator, Malcolm Brogdon. With the Wizards right now, that's a guy that has been kind of in the mix. Lonzo Ball has been out there as somebody, but again, do you buy his that he's going to stay healthy on the injury front? So those are a couple of names that might be acquirable out there on the market. Making the math work, that's not easy on the trade front, but those are a couple of guys if they do decide to go with more of a true initiator, a ball handler for that role. Lonzo, Malcolm Brogdon, maybe some guys that they take a look at.
Lonzo. Wow. Really trying to recycle all the guys that you drafted.
Right? Just bring them on back. We've got D'Lo next. Brandon Ingram, get him on deck. He can come on back next.
You want Kyle Kuzma, Julius Randle. You're not getting Josh Hart, all right? Josh Hart is staying Nick. I'm just letting you know that right now.
Oh, man. We miss Josh Hart. We miss Josh Hart. He was so great. Hey, I've got a story for you about Josh Hart, actually.
Let's hear it.
So Josh Hart, when he was a rookie, And this is his mentality, right? The way this guy's wired. He's a rookie. He's in the locker room, and I'm going in and I'm doing my interviews and stuff. And I go up to Josh, and I sit down next to him and go, "Hey man, you got a minute?" And he goes, "Yeah, sure." And I'll never forget. He's sitting there, he's eating popcorn. And I go, "Josh, we're talking about things." That I said, "Well, tell me about the defense. There seems like there's more defensive intensity on this team. It seems to be really picking up." And he looks at me. This is rookie Josh Hart, right? He's established that this was early in the season. I want to say this may have even been a preseason game. And he looks me dead in the eye. He goes, "Well, I'm the best defensive player on this team."
Mm.
And I go, "Yeah." He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "No, I believe in myself. That is my defensive capability. I plan to be the best defensive player. I think I'm there. I think I'm going to be there defensively." And I'm like, man, and this is coming in as a rookie just to have that kind of confidence and everything. I loved it. I mean, he's got that tenacity to him.
Absolutely. I mean, John, whew, you see it on a night-to-night basis,
Yeah.
man. I mean, he rocks at number 3 very well for this team. I mean, just the heart, the soul, no pun intended with the heart, because when you just watch him out there, man, this is the guy who plays like he can play strong safety, free safety, whatever you need.
Yeah.
He does everything. And this season, I know he didn't get chosen to be a reserve as an all-star. Very much deserving of it if he got there. I would not have been surprised if he did, just because for a guy who's 6'4", the way that he's rebounding, I mean, top 10 in rebounding amongst the bigs, which is just insane. His ability to just create for for this team is also, as a secondary creator, fantastic. And then there's just nights where not the flashiest score, but he could just put up 20 and be like, wow, 20
Yeah.
points. And it's like, next thing you know, you're like 20. When did Josh do all that? And gets you a triple double. So he's just, that mentality clearly shows through to this day. And that's the one thing we love about him. So I like that story,
Absolutely.
man. I love that story about him, man. That just tells me how. And I wonder if you could tell Brunson down on his podcast, be like, I'm still the best defender. Although, like,
Um,
OG, we got OG now,
OG and
Bridges. I
you've
mean,
got these
there's
guys,
there's
but
some arguments right now, man, for
sure.
who's the best defender. I'm sure if once Mitchell Robinson gets back, Mitch will have something to say too with his quirky self. So, getting back to the Lakers, though. So, you're saying Lonzo is somebody for the guard. Walker Kessler is the name that's out there at the center. Is this you guys really gonna deal with Danny Ainge to try to go get him?
I mean, they did it when they got D'Angelo Russell in the Russell Westbrook trade. I mean, everybody was saying, "Oh, no, the Lakers are going to have to give up multiple firsts to get Russell Westbrook off their roster." It'll cost a first to get Russ off your roster. It'll cost another first to get anything back for him, right? That was what was going around. And they wound up doing a deal with Ainge with the Jazz, and they gave up one first, and they got D'Angelo Russell. They got Malik Beasley. Didn't work out. He's playing great now this season because, of course. But and then they got Jared Vanderbilt. And so they were able to get a deal done with Danny. It's a top 4 protected first round pick in 2027. Walker Kessler, though, like everything I've heard on him, like I think if there was a deal to be done there, they would do it. But everything we're hearing right now is that the Jazz, they want so much. Like there's a point where you're negotiating with a team where they're asking for so much that they're actually kind of sending the message that they're not going to make a trade. And that's kind of the sense people are getting from which makes sense. I mean, he's 23 years old. The Jazz don't have to move on from him. He's on a great contract, cost controlled. He's been fantastic for them. I think there was actually a little bit of momentum behind a Walker Kessler trade over the summer because he had just spent the season, a good chunk of it coming off the bench with the Jazz. He wasn't happy. He wasn't happy that he played for Team USA the summer before and then got moved into a bench role the next season on his NBA team. He was not thrilled with that. And so I think there was a little bit of friction there. And maybe there was a window to get Walker Kessler then. But he's been so great this year. One of the best shot blockers in the league. He does it without fouling, which is impressive. I would be surprised if the Jazz moved on from him. What's out there is that even if the Lakers gave up both of their future first round picks that are available, that's still not enough to get Walker Kessler. And that tells me, all right, there's probably not going to be a deal to be found there.
Well, what's the urgency for getting a 5 right now? Because Anthony Davis, now going to miss some time due to an injury. What's the urgency for this team to figure out that role?
So what is out there is that the team does not feel any additional urgency to add a center because there's belief and optimism that Anthony Davis's injury really is going to be a short-term thing. Like they're talking a week to 10 days, something like that. Then then he'll be back in action. I do wonder if we get close enough to the All-Star break, if they say, just sit out the last couple of games and then get another week to rest and recover and all of that. Maybe we get to that point, but it sure sounds like there's a good chance that he comes back before the All-Star break. And if not, then he should definitely be ready by, the first game back from the break. So it seems like they've avoided a long-term serious injury here with AD. And so because of that, it's not like they're rushing to go find a replacement out there on the market. They'll still try to find somebody to play with him, but they're not looking at guys thinking, okay, we need to find somebody to take over this role for Anthony Davis.
It fascinating. I know he had a really good season last year, staying healthy.
Mm-hmm.
He played like 76 games last year. Really good pace this season too. He's played over 40 some odd games. So he's on pace to almost match the same amount of games that he played last year. But isn't there still a little bit of concern considering this is a guy who has like extensive injury history that you want to go out and make sure you just bolster that center position?
Oh, for sure, for sure, and that's part of the reason why I think they need to go get somebody. I was saying it over the summer that it was going to be a failure of an offseason if they didn't add anybody in the middle to help just give you something that's not Anthony Davis, or at least give you. See, part of what makes Anthony Davis so good is the optionality that you have with him, because you can play him at the 4 or the 5. A lot of people get wrapped up in this. He's a center, he's a power forward, and he's not the other thing, right? But what really makes Anthony Davis so almost unique is that he can do both things. But what you have to have is a roster that can allow him to do that. Right now, the Lakers have a roster that will allow him to play center, and that's about it. They don't really have somebody that can be a physical presence at the 5. You're not always going to need him to play the 4, even if he wants to play there more. And a lot of nights, the better matchup for him is going to be at the 5. But you want to have the option. So when the situation is upon you that playing him at the 4 makes sense, you want to have the ability to do it. And they don't right now. They don't have really the ability to do that. So I do think they need to add somebody both to protect themselves from some kind of Anthony Davis injury, but also to really unlock that versatility that he's got to play either the 4 or the 5.
Okay. So now with AD, so the center position, you guys want to make a move. You guys want to bolster that position. AD not going to be out there that long. Just got to manage this ship at this point, right? As you said, just get to the All-Star break, and then everything should be okay. Do you believe in JJ Redick being able to figure out things for this team to get them to that point and still maintain this fifth position in the Western Conference?
I think it'll be tough. I mean, the West it's going to be a dogfight all the way through. I know their schedule gets even more difficult when we get into March. As far as getting through this stretch without Anthony Davis, it's going to be tough. I mean, what are they going to do against Cat on Saturday? I don't know. Jackson Hayes is going to get thrown out there, and he's probably going to get torn to shreds. But they don't have a lot right now, but it depends on which team shows up, though, too. I mean, we've seen this team show up and, just have nothing, have no energy, and look kind of listless. And then other nights they've got, all systems are firing and they're off and running. So a lot of it's going to depend on which Lakers team shows up, how well they execute. Are they able to increase their volume? What we've seen fairly consistently is any game that AD is out, they've increased their volume from behind the arc compared to game, which makes sense. But we've seen that play out. So can they take and make enough threes to, in some ways, mitigate the absence of Anthony Davis? That'll be certainly something to keep an eye on. JJ Redick himself, I'll tell you the difference with JJ Redick, and hopefully this is the way it stays. I don't know, but last year with Darvin Ham at the helm for the Lakers, you started to hear a lot as the season went on of the players not necessarily taking responsibility for themselves, or not shielding the coaching staff, I should say. There was a lot of, like, Anthony Davis infamously had a quote in the playoffs where he said that guys don't know what they're supposed to be doing. I'm paraphrasing, but something to the effect of guys don't know what they're supposed to be doing out here, which obviously doesn't look good for a coach in a playoff series if your players are saying we don't know what we're supposed to be doing. With JJ Redick, the common phrase we've heard for the last few weeks when they have a bad game has been something to the effect of, the coaches gave us our game plan, and they've given us the answers to the test. It's a phrase I've heard quite a bit, but we didn't execute it. The coaches prepared us, and we went out on the floor and did not do what they asked us to do. And so you have the players saying things like that. It's a striking difference compared to last season. And so that tells me the players are still very bought in to JJ Redick. Now, will that continue? Who knows? At some point, there's always a breaking point. Every coach has to deal with it. But for the time being, they are still very much bought in to JJ Redick as their coach, believed in him moving forward. And so that is what you have to have, right? You have to have that buy-in from the players. And JJ does have that. So I think he's got a shot to, to weather this storm, get them to buy into some of his plans and schemes, and then go from there. And again, right now they're the 5th seed in the West. I don't think you could ask for any better from JJ or from the team at this point in the season.
So you've been very, I guess, pleased or happy with JJ's
Sure.
performance as a head coach this season.
Yeah, yeah. So far, I mean, look, there have been plenty of ups and downs. There have been moments where I thought, "Oh my God, like what? Why did he do that? That doesn't make any sense." But he's a first-year head coach, right? I mean, it's first time coaching anything. So he's been overall. You expected bumps in the road. We've had some of those, but he's been pretty solid as a coach. Now, I'll tell you what, he's intense. He's fired up. He's yelling at players and getting angry on the sideline and all that kind of
That
stuff.
highlight of
That's
Dalton
JJ.
Connect not running the right play, that's
Exactly.
made its rounds.
Exactly. That's JJ. I mean, he definitely holds guys accountable, and it's certainly not. If JJ isn't successful, it's not going to be for a lack of effort or a lack of passion or apathy kicking in or any of those things. That much we know for sure.
Were you shocked when it was JJ chosen as the head coach?
No, I was for a bit there. We pivoted and it was all in on Dan Hurley, right? And that was and it was okay. This is the way this is going. Wow, kind of out of the blue, they're gonna go get Dan Hurley, and it seemed like JJ kind of got pushed to the side because we were hearing before that, like, oh, Rob Pelinka really likes JJ. That's probably the way this is gonna go, and all of that. And then suddenly our focus shifted to Dan Hurley, and then when that didn't work out, kind of had the sense that it was that eventually, while there were some other names out there, eventually it would pivot back to JJ. He was the consistent name that we kept hearing. And once we started to hear the whole thing about like, oh, they see him as maybe their next Pat Riley, that he can be their coach for the next 10 years in a post LeBron era and stuff like that. I'm like, it's a hell of a gamble, right? On a guy who's never coached before. But if they think that's the upside and that's the potential, and they think he can be a foundation piece post LeBron, once we started hearing that stuff, it's like, okay, it's going to be JJ. Like that's who they're going to go with.
It's always been fascinating. I mean, watching him on his own podcast, Old Man of the Three, or just even when he's on ESPN, he's just so you can tell the detail. You can just tell how detailed he is by how he can break down a point, by being able to break down a play, just like over audio. You know how difficult that is to like actually visualize what he's actually talking about. And I'm not just talking to you, Trevor. I'm just talking to like everyone who's tuning in right now. Like that is difficult, and so I can only imagine how well he can just display that to a group of men trying to play basketball at a high level. So it didn't shock me why they would want him as a head coach. I just find it interesting, for a team that has LeBron James, that has championship aspirations, that you went with like a first-time rookie head coach. Because sometimes, we saw that with Griffin last year. That's not always the right decision. And, maybe you do get lucky after like a Joe Mazzulla, like first year takes their lumps, and then next thing you know, they win the championship next year. But I just thought that was like a big risk for what the Lakers are trying to do, since you only have a few more years of LeBron on this team.
Yeah, it's certainly a risk. It's certainly a risk, and I know LeBron's interactions with JJ on the podcast, that helps quite a bit, but it's certainly a risk in that regard, and especially I mean, you look what Kenny Atkinson did. I mean, he was one of the names that they could have pursued, but look what he's been doing with the Cavs. There's always the well, what could have been, but they felt comfortable with JJ and believing that. I do think the Lakers organizationally are starting to, like you said, it's only so much time left with LeBron. They're starting to look at, we need to pay attention to what the post LeBron is going to look like, post LeBron era will look like, and we need to start getting some pieces in place to make sure it's not LeBron is gone and then just poof, everything falls apart.
Salute to Knicks Nation. Thank you all for tuning in for another Game of the Week preview. With me on the other side is my guy, Trevor Lane. You can catch him over at Lakers Nation, breaking down games and the entire Los Angeles Lakers, or you can go catch him over at Front Office Show with our guy Keith as well. Those guys do a phenomenal job over there, just giving you the insight, the details on how things are broken down from a front office's point of view. So make sure to go check them out. Now, you already know what part of the show we're at. We're at the Underdog Fantasy Show, part of this show. Okay, so make sure to support our sponsor, Underdog Fantasy. Use that promo code KFTV to get up to $1,000 in instant bonus cash and a free pick. Guys, look, I love using Underdog Fantasy. It's a lot of fun while I'm watching the NBA or any sport. I told you, almost missed out. I missed out this past Sunday between the Chiefs, the Eagles, the Bills. It was just nonsense for me. The Commanders, I needed just two things, man. I could have won 300 bones. Instead, I'm out here just getting $4, but it's a lot of fun. All you got to do is just choose higher or lower on any statistical category in whatever sport it may be, NFL, NBA, MLB. So for let's say Saturday's game between the Knicks and the Lakers, Brunson, whatever that, whatever they choose as a point line. So let's say it's 33 and a half points. All you got to do is just choose higher or lower if you think Jalen Brunson is going to score higher, score more than 33 and a half points or less than. It's just that easy and it's a lot of fun. I like playing it, as I said. And then the other part of it is that there's also a draft component, a fantasy draft component through Underdog Fantasy as well. So CP, myself, JD, we like to put a little wager, a little lunch money wager, okay? And we draft 6 players. We compete, fantasy points, a lot of fun. So make sure to tell a friend and support our sponsor, Underdog Fantasy. Use that promo code KFTV to get up to $1,000 in instant bonus cash and a free pick. All right, Trevor, let's get into the breakdown of this game now, because it's going to be interesting since you guys don't have Anthony Davis. Cat's dealing with an injury as well. Hasn't necessarily been shooting great from downtown. Still trying to figure out his footing as well with that injury. But I still think there's some interesting factors going into this game. One that I'm looking at for the Los Angeles Lakers is that when it comes to defending the rim, they're in the bottom of the league of doing that. Teams are able to put up close to 70% around the rim. And with Karl Anthony Towns playing the way that he is right now and Jalen Brunson loving to get downhill, I just feel like there's going to be an area for the Knicks to thrive in. What do you think about that?
Oh, they absolutely should. I mean, without it, Anthony Davis is their primary rim protector in years past. The Lakers have been one of the leaders in block shots. That has not been the case nearly as much this season. Yes, they're getting Jared Vanderbilt back into the mix, and he can help them a little. I mean, he's not really he's more of a perimeter defender, but he can help them a little bit out there. But without Anthony Davis, there's not. I mean, Jackson Hayes can occasionally get a block, but he is not a physical, intimidating presence at the rim at all. Yeah, if I'm playing against the Lakers right now with no Anthony Davis, I'm attacking the basket as much as I can. They've got a couple of guys on two-way contracts, Christian Koloko, Trey Jemison, that they may throw in there at the big position to try to help out there. LeBron's a pretty big dude, but again, he's not necessarily a big-time shot blocker. So that is absolutely an area that I would expect the Knicks to attack and have a lot of success against this Lakers team right now with no AD in there and Jackson Hayes really the only like rotation center that's healthy currently on the roster.
Another area I'm looking at for this game too is like mid-range game. I know I'm looking at Cleaning the Glass right now. It says the Lakers are 29th when it comes to defending the long mid-range, and there's one guy on this team that just loves his mid-range shots, and that is none other than Mikal Bridges. He's been just knocking them down at a high clip. I'm looking for Tibbs to try to get him involved, get some screens, get him going downhill, just so that way he can get some separation and just knock down some shots. He's been very efficient from like the left, the right elbow, even baseline. Bridges has just been on one, especially when he gets to his mid-range spot.
Well, and that is where I think I don't have the numbers in front of me on what they've done recently, and especially because he's been in and out of the lineup as well with his own injury, Dorian Finney-Smith. But I do believe that the Lakers defensively are a bit of a different team than what they've been over the course of the whole season, because you turned D'Angelo Russell into Dorian Finney-Smith, who's a much more positive defensive player, did not play against the Washington Wizards due to a shoulder injury. We'll see if he's a go against the Knicks, but assuming he does play, you've got him out there. You've got Jared Vanderbilt. They have a better ability to contest on the perimeter, including the long twos, than they would have had over the course of the season. They just have more size on the wing there to do that. So I'm not saying it's suddenly a strength for the Lakers, but there should be significant improvement there compared to what perhaps the season-long numbers would have showed, especially when they were running lineups featuring D'Angelo Russell, Austin Reeves, and Rui Hachimura together. All of those guys are going to get torched pretty much anywhere defensively, but they've got some concerns on the defensive side there. But when you can insert guys like Finney-Smith, like Jared Vanderbilt, they can provide more resistance in that area.
For sure, absolutely. And I'll say this, like, even though I'm talking about where the Knicks should be able to thrive in this game, if anything the Lakers are good to be able to do is I know they're very good at knocking down the corner threes and just
Mhm.
pretty solid at knocking down threes in general. That's the Knicks, Achilles heel at this point. They've been doing a decent job as of late defensively, but the Knicks are still in the basement when it comes to defending the three. They are 30th according to Queen of the Glass. We struggle when it comes to defending anybody. For some reason, we just don't like to defend a three. I know Tom Thibodeau loves drop coverage, and we got to protect the
Mhm.
paint at all costs. But in doing that, just leaves open. We tend to leave guys open on the perimeter. So I think the Lakers are going to have some success there in this matchup.
Well, they certainly will increase their shot volume from three without Anthony Davis out there. And then the guys to watch would be players like Max Christie, who's been starting at the two. He's done well defensively for them, but we've also seen the 3-point shot come around a bit for him. He's a pretty decent shooter, and he can get some open looks there. Rui Hachimura, percentage-wise, has been second season in a row as a very positive 3-point shooter. So the Lakers do have some guys that can capitalize on those things. Dorian Finney-Smith hadn't shot necessarily great from three as a Laker, but he's been solid. They're low volume, but solid. So they do have guys that can certainly hurt you from behind the arc, and that's where, without Anthony Davis on a talent basis, then the Knicks should be well ahead of the Lakers here. But the 3-point shot is the great equalizer, right, in the NBA today. And the Knicks are a pretty good 3-point shooting team. If they happen to have an off shooting game from three and the Lakers increase their volume, that maybe can make up some of that talent deficit where we wind up getting maybe a closer game than you would necessarily think if you just look at the rosters on paper. So I do think the 3-point shooting is going to be really important in this game. The Lakers, their ability to, if they can win the 3-point shooting category, that will go a long way towards helping, I think, make up for the talent deficit that I think they're going to be at in this one.
Shout out to Aldi Gioka in the chat for being a franchise channel member. Says, Alex, we allow some of the least threes attempted in this league. Yes, even though we allow some of the least attempted threes, doesn't mean guys aren't converting at a high rate. And so that's what opponents have been able to do. They're able to convert at a high rate. And Lakers is just a good team just knocking down threes at an efficient rate. So that's why it's a concern. That's why it's a concern, ladies and gentlemen. But outside of this, I'm also looking at fast break scoring. I think this is where it's, always who can get the easy points,
Yeah.
right? And so both these teams, Knicks are 11th, Lakers are 13th. Should be interesting to see which team is able to get out and run the most in this matchup. Both teams, for different reasons, don't really get out. I would say don't get out of transition as much as they probably should. Lakers, you got LeBron, you got AD. You're looking to work the half court a little bit more. Also, I don't think the roster. You let me know, Trevor, that I don't
Mhm.
think it's necessarily adept at getting out in transition as frequently as they want. Knicks just love to work the half court more so than getting out in transition. They can, and when they do it, it's very efficient. But they would just like to work the half court. That's just kind of their MO.
Well, the Lakers are not great at forcing live ball turnovers. You typically see that in steals. The Lakers are a bottom third NBA team when it comes to steals, and so that does prevent them from having some transition scoring opportunities. They're not bad. They're fairly efficient when they do get out in transition and they run. Where they've struggled quite a bit earlier on in the season, specifically, was getting. I mean, they were awful. I mean, in transition, essentially for the first month and a half, 2 months of the season, if the Lakers missed a shot, that was, and the opponent got a defensive rebound, it was almost the equivalent of a live ball turnover because they were so bad at getting back. Teams were just running on them. They've gotten better there with their transition defense, but taking advantage of the Lakers there, it's still something that can be done. Right now, they rank 23rd in the NBA in opponents' fast break points surrendered. So you can run on this Lakers team. Can they be efficient in their own right? Yeah. I mean, they're kind of a middle of the pack, fast break point scoring team. They can run off some turn, but they just don't generate enough turnovers to be a major threat there. And I know the Knicks are a low turnover team. So it's going to be interesting in that regard. I don't know how many fast break, and the Lakers are also a relatively low turnover team. That maybe that changes with the offense shifting without Anthony Davis if there's some discomfort there. But I do think that while the fast break opportunities may not be numerous, the team that can take advantage of their fast break opportunities the most is going to be, that's going to be, I think, a significant edge in this matchup.
Absolutely. And, when I think about defense, I know we talked about Josh Hart and how Josh Hart thinks he's the
Mhm.
best defender out there, probably in the galaxy, if you asked him. If you sat down with him today, he probably still thinks he's the best out there
Yeah.
in the galaxy. And I would say, Bridges is very good at that. OG Anunoby is a guy who knows how to, just put his hand into the passing lane, into the driving lane, and just cause a turnover. And that's why I'm looking at OG as well as LeBron as my key matchup for Saturday's matchup. I think this is going to be the key matchup. One, because OG is going to get the LeBron assignment. Bridges usually gets the top point of attack assignment. I don't expect Bridges to be placed on LeBron James. I think physicality wise, that would just be a
Mhm.
mismatch all day long. So we got to put our strongest defender out there. I'm going with OG for those purposes. And then on top of that, OG defensively, he's just savvy enough, especially in isolation, knowing how to disrupt people. Now, I'm not saying he's going to stop LeBron James, but I'm looking for the best chance to cause a turnover. LeBron's going to have the rock the most. He's going to try to get everybody set up. I think that's going to be the key matchup, especially if you want to generate turnovers and get out in transition. OG LeBron is going to be the top matchup. And then offensively, looking from an OG perspective, he's been hot as of late. He's shooting close to 60% from downtown. The 3 days of rest has really, inspired him, invigorated him because this guy looked like he needed a break badly. This guy, he usually misses time during the regular season. Knock on wood, hasn't missed a game yet, but looked like he needed that All-Star break to come sooner rather than later. He probably been with Josh Hart putting his toes in the sand, as Josh Hart was quoted saying, and that's why he didn't want to be a part of the All-Star break or part All-Star week, I should say. So OG has now, after 3 games of rest, these last 3 games, shooting close to 60% from downtown. Looks like the OG that dropped 40 on the Denver Nuggets. And obviously, we know what LeBron can do, man. It's LeBron James. So that's my key matchup for the game. What do you think about that matchup, Trevor?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a great matchup. And LeBron he's had his games lately. Well, actually, for the course of the season, he's had his games where the turnovers get up there, where he will have 5, 6, sometimes 7 turnovers in a game.
Mm,
And it kind of depends on how locked in he is. There are LeBron at 40 he's still amazing and he does incredible things, but he's not night in, night out, put the team on his back and going to drag them to victory. He just can't do it. He could do it every once in a while, but he's not going to do that every single night. And he does have his games where he's particularly low energy, and you can see that he's just not quite the focus levels, maybe not quite where he needs to be on the passes. And so he'll throw a few passes that are the timing will be a little bit off. It'll be a little bit behind or something like that. He's a phenomenal passer. I mean, don't get me wrong. He's arguably the best passer in the league. He is insane passing the basketball. He just has games where he gets kind of in a funk. And so that's going to be OG Anunoby's job in this one is to try to shoot those passing lanes and make passes difficult for him. And if you do get LeBron into a high turnover game, that's a pretty good way to win. A lot of times when we're watching the games, people don't, when you're just watching the live game, because it goes so fast, it's easy to go,
mhm.
oh, man, they turned it over. Oh, they scored. And now we're coming back the other way without stopping to understand like how important turnovers really are. When you take what should be a shot at a basket and make it a turnover, you're subtracting the stats say what a little bit over 1 point off of your team score, plus putting your opponent in a position where they are much more likely to score in a transition opportunity. So it's a 2, 3, sometimes more point swing per turnover. So if you could push LeBron into a high turnover game, that's a big thing that would go towards leading to a Knicks win.
For sure. And that's once again why it's my key matchup. Another big
Yeah.
matchup though for tomorrow's game is Austin Reeves, and I got Mikal Bridges going on Austin Reeves. Austin Reeves, and look, I have Austin Reeves on my fantasy basketball team. Love it. I've been getting crazy trade offers. All right. I can't even say the guy's, fantasy league name because it's just too flagrant out there. It does have Diddy in it. All right. And it does have an emoji that I'm just flabbergasted at. But uh asking for Austin Reeves at this point, not trading him, but for Bridges, Austin Reeves, I know he can be a bucket. I know he's another guy that they've given facilitating duties to be kind of that initiator. I'm looking at Bridges taking on the Austin Reeves assignment, and that should be another fun one for tomorrow.
Yeah, Austin can be pretty crafty, especially when he gets into the paint. He's been, especially over the last couple of weeks, he's really seemed to have this idea that he wants to explode to the basket. And he's pretty crafty. He's been very decisive when it's time to go to the rim, and he's pretty crafty with his finishes at the rim. He's got these little scoop shots with either hand that he can hit. So he can be a tough cover. We've also seen that he can struggle with ball pressure though. When teams are really playing, especially when there's an athletic, and there often is, but when there's an athleticism deficit and it's a really significant one, the Detroit Pistons really caused him to have a lot of problems when he was playing against them, and it was Jaden Ivey that was, up on him. That can be an issue. So if Bridges is really trying to put a lot of pressure on Austin, what we've seen the Lakers do is counter with sometimes even Max Christie's been bringing the ball up to try to make it so Austin doesn't have to battle against that. So that's an area the Bridges might be able to kind of trip up Austin or get him out of his game. It's just by putting a lot of pressure on him up top. But Austin's been doing a really nice job recognizing seams, exploding to the basket, and then he's capable of shooting the threes. And we actually have seen a little wrinkle the Lakers have thrown in recently to generate a corner three, which is, and they actually ran it against the Wizards. They stick Jackson Hayes in the corner, and they know nobody's going to defend him out there. So then when the ball does go to Hayes, Austin very quickly darts out to Hayes. Hayes does a little handoff, steps forward. You've immediately got a screen for Austin, and he steps behind the three-point line, and he's the one taking the shot. They can run that with Dalton Connect as well. So that'll be something to keep an eye on. Are the Lakers able to do some things in order to free up on Austin Reeves, Dalton Connect? Some of their guys who have scoring ability, but sometimes can struggle a little bit with separation.
Yeah, and I would say like in Saturday's matchup, Bridges, he's been better as of late, like just causing pressure, fighting over screens, and just making, those just making those guys feel uncomfortable, right? And that's the whole point when you're trying to disrupt an initiator, a guy who just, has that creation like an Austin Reeves. You want to make them feel uncomfortable, like they have to work 10 times harder to get to their shots. He's been doing a good job over these last 3 games, but we've seen Bridges, kind of like wane in and out of like, all right, where's the intensity? We need that. We need you to be, this dog that just makes guys just fearful, right? And just make them uncomfortable on a night-to-night basis. And we've seen that come in and come out. He's been doing a solid job. He did a solid job on Trae Young. He did a solid job on De'Aaron Fox. He's been holding up very well these past 3 games. And I'm hoping they can do the same thing against Austin Reeves, just because Austin Reeves, like I said, that guy, once if he gets going, it's tough to start a guy who's now like in his rhythm, now is confident, walking into shots, and we just don't. I don't want to see none of that, man. I don't want to see none of that, even though it'd be nice for my fantasy basketball team. All right. Now,
I like it. That's sacrifice on your part, right? You're putting the team ahead of your fantasy success. Hey, you take one for the team, right?
I gotta take one for the team. I gotta take one for the home team, man. All right. I'm not gonna bench him. All right. That just be crazy. Now I'm shooting myself in the foot. But I'm trying to win some money here, man. It was $100 buy-in. Okay, guys. I'm number one in the league. I'm trying to win some money over here. Okay. Child care is expensive. But let's get to the X factor of this game, Trevor, and then wrap up and get you out of here. So, since you're the guest, I want to know, who do you think is going to be the player that could just, put the Lakers in position that comes out of nowhere, and could be that guy?
So in terms of a guy that could really make an impact on this game, we'll see where he's at health-wise, but it's Jared Vanderbilt. He's coming off the bench. He's not going to play a lot of minutes. He's on a minutes limitation. He's only going to play probably about 16 minutes or so, but he's averaging an insane number of steals when he's out there. He's really wreaking havoc defensively. No, he's not good offensively. He's got some struggles there. They're having him corner crash, though. Every shot that goes up, he is going for the offensive rebound. And if the goal for the Lakers has got to be to find a way to turn the Knicks over so they can get some half-court opportunities, Jared Vanderbilt is probably one of their best shots at doing that. So he's the kind of guy that can inject enough chaos into a game like this where the Lakers are coming in. The Knicks will certainly be the favorite going into this. They definitely, especially without Anthony Davis, that the Knicks are going to be certainly the stronger roster on paper, but Jared Vanderbilt is the kind of guy that can put enough chaos into a game to where anything can happen. And so that's the guy that I'm looking for from the Lakers, specifically on the defensive side of the ball. If he could wreak some havoc, force some turnovers, provide some energy, sometimes that can be enough of a spark to turn the tide. So that's the guy that I'm really keeping an eye on for this one. It's Jared Vanderbilt.
All right. So you got Jared Vanderbilt. I'm going to go with Josh Hart. I mean, it doesn't feel like at this point, I know people like to say he's the X factor. I mean, is at what point does your X factor when he's so consistent is he really an X factor? Like at that point, is he an X factor? It's like, all right, the guy's showing up, he's doing everything that I'm expecting him to do, which is do all the gritty work. But I'm
Yep.
expecting him to go off in this game just because one, no Anthony Davis, so I think that opens up a lot of responsibility for not necessarily responsibility, but a lot of opportunities for him in this matchup for sure. And I'm just looking at the rest of the guys on this roster. You got Max Christie, Rui Hachimura, and then you talk about Jared Vanderbilt. I just see in these matchups, and this is not to say that these guys are terrible, but I think these are types of matchups that Josh Hart looks forward to in order to impose his strength and just use that like Energizer Bunny skill set that he has. So I think in this matchup, Josh Hart's going to go grab his boards, of course, is what he does. But I think scoring wise, he's going to give us the punch that we need in this one. We're going to see those just tight window finishes for layups. We're going to see him just go out and transition and score as well. And then facilitating, he just knows how to find guys like push the ball ahead, easy stuff of that nature. And so
Mhm.
I've got Josh Hart as my X factor in this matchup. I usually go with Mikal Bridges because he was, a little up and down this season, a little
Right.
up and down. So it's like, I don't know what I'm going to get. Am I going to get Mikal Bridges that drops 20, gets a few boards over here? Looks like he's Rip Hamilton. Or am I going to get the Mikal Bridges? I'm like, what's going on over here? I have no idea what we traded 5 first-round picks for and a pick swap for this. But he's playing better. All right. He is playing a lot better. So I'm not saying that. But I'm going with Josh Hart. You got Jared Vanderbilt. Those are solid X factors for tomorrow's game. Trevor, I appreciate you coming through as always. Please let the listeners know where they can find you if you got any work up and coming we should be on the lookout for.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, we've got stuff coming out every single day over on the Lakers Nation YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/Lakers Nation. Our written work over at LakersNation.com. And then over on the NBA front office show, we'll be live on Friday doing our front office Friday show. We let everybody come in and ask questions and comments and all. It's very, very interactive. So if you want to ask us salary cap questions, you want to ask us questions about the trade market, that's the opportunity to do so. We usually shoot for right around noon Eastern time. We'll see what the schedule looks like tomorrow. But if you keep an eye on the social media for myself at Trevor_Lane over on X, or Keith Smith at Keith Smith NBA over on X, we'll publish it and let everybody know when we're going to go live. And we'll be talking a lot of trade front stuff. So jump in, come hang out. It's a good time. And this is a great time of year in the NBA because the clock's ticking. The trade deadline's almost here. And there's all kinds of rumors flying already. So tons of stuff to talk about.
I'll definitely be tapped in. I'm going to ask you right now since I got you here on the show. What's the move the Knicks make? Did they make any moves at all? I know they're over the first apron, very close to the second apron. What moves do the Knicks make?
Yeah, I mean, I think that they do. I think they need to make a move to try to close the gap between them and the Celtics and the Cavs. I do wonder though if they just look at Mitchell Robinson returning and say, look, this is our acquisition at the trade deadline. This is the guy that we're getting. I know there's been some rumblings about them flipping Robinson and maybe going with a guy that they think is going to stay healthier, like Jonas Valanciunas or something like that. I wouldn't do. I just stick with Mitchell Robinson. I mean, he's the more talented player. Stick with him. If they're going to do something out there on the trade market, I could see them looking for another big just to provide that insurance option because of Mitchell Robinson's injury history. And there are some bigs out there, but that Nick Richards deal that already landed him in Phoenix, I think that hurt a number of teams that were kind of looking at the center spot. But we'll see if the Knicks can make something happen or not. I think worst case scenario, they just go and they say, you know what, Mitchell Robinson, he's going to be coming back. This is our trade deadline acquisition, and we add him to this team.
I agree 100%, Trevor. I just don't see this team wanting to go through all the financial hurdles just to like stay under the second apron and then just try to figure out who do you want and then aggregate like very important players. Like, there's talks about flipping Precious and Mitch together. I'm like, we need Precious and we certainly need Mitch too when he's back. Like Mitch as a defensive anchor can transcend this team to a whole other height. I'm not expecting him to be that same guy that he was prior to injury against the Celtics last year, but it's like you get Mitchell Robinson back. We're talking about an elite offensive rebounder. We're talking about a guy who could protect the rim. We're talking about a lob threat. I'm not looking to trade Mitch, especially at his lowest value right now. And so you're trading him for pennies on the dollar. I think you're right where I think the Knicks are just going to stand pat. If they want to go into the buyout market, they'll look into that. But I don't know what many options there are. for that as well. But I appreciate the time once again, Trevor. Thank you as always for coming through and helping me preview these games. And Knicks Nation, I thank all of you for tuning in as well. I'm sure that, and I know there was Lakers Nation here. I saw a few people shouting out Trevor and saying they come over from Lakers Nation, the YouTube channel where Trevor does a phenomenal job over there. So appreciate all of you for tuning in. Make sure that thumbs up button for your boys. Make sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. All right, and make sure Clinton Hall. All right. No, not Clinton Hall. Slate this weekend. Sorry, there's so many venues that we choose. Slate this weekend in New York City for the watch party between the New York Knicks and the Los Angeles Lakers. Okay, make sure to get your tickets. Make sure to get ready. There's going to be jerseys, silent auction. We got 2 Jalen Brunson jerseys. We got a Josh Hart jersey up for auction. There's a lot of great gifts, so make sure to come through. As you all know, this will all be going towards the wildfires out in California. That's where all this money is going towards. So make sure to support. Make sure to show up. Make sure to enjoy, a good game that we're going to get on Saturday between the Lakers and the Knicks, and be there with the rest of the Orange and Blue Nation. So shout out to everybody once again. Shout out to all the franchise channel members. I see John Talento in here. Who else we got in here? What other franchise channel members we got in here? We got the show. Shout out to you, my guy. Shout out to Jam Sessions as well. We got Santana in here as well. Shout out to all the franchise channel members once again for being here. Tuto, I see you as well, my man. Shout out to you, tuning in all the way from Italy. Shout out to all you guys once again. Appreciate you. We'll catch you on the other side. We out.